So hello and welcome everybody to Segal Talks here, and I would like to welcome everybody who is with us. And hi there to India. Can you hear us? Can you?
Yes. Hello.
Yes. Wonderful. And hey to Carol here at NYU in New York City. So thank you so much for joining. We are very excited. You are the very first hour of that 24-hour marathon, and it's all beginning. And we have with us Hope Azeda from Rwanda. We have Carol Martin here in the US, and Moloyashree, if I say Hashmi, and Komita Dhanda from New Delhi, if I say that right. So welcome everybody, and we're gonna stick to our script. We're gonna have 1 hour, 20 minutes segments, and we're gonna start with India. This is all about India. So I would like to welcome all of you and ask our Indian friends and colleagues, you know, what was this crisis for you personally and politically?
Thank you, Frank. May I just very quickly introduce both of us?
Yes,
I am
please.
Moloyashree Hashmi, and this is my colleague Komita Dhanda from Delhi, India. And we are both organizers and actors, and Komita is also a director-writer with India's premier street theatre group, JANAM. Our work is among the ordinary and the marginalized in spaces where they live and work. And why I'm telling you all this is because that will give you an indication as to how we respond to our times on a regular basis and how we responded during the pandemic. This actually means, you know, when we go and work, perform in actual spaces where people live and work, we go to slums, to factory gates, to offices, to schools. These are spaces that are not conventionally for performance. So that in itself poses many challenges theatrically, but also organizationally, and which is part of the nature of our work. And this is also very importantly the mainstay of our work philosophy of taking theatre to the people and theatre for the people. So this, you know, going to the audiences makes art, at least our theatre, accessible to all. And this art, this theatre becomes a lived and integral part of people's lives. I'm sure that when anyone in the audience, you know, goes past that particular space, like what you can see now, this is actually the path of workers who go to work, you know, go back after their factory shift is over, and that's where they have stopped and they're watching the play. So tomorrow or the next day, when they pass that way, I am sure, you know, whether it's the road, the pavement, or park, wherever they're going, they'll recall, you know, that we saw a play here yesterday or the day before or 2 weeks earlier. And I think this sort of answers the oft-asked question of what is the reach and impact of a play. I think this is, you know, the unstated impact. And I think performing in spaces like this also adds another dimension to the space. It democratizes the space, because otherwise spaces are used for only one thing, and that is to go from one place to the other, or occasionally maybe, you know, have a meeting over there. I think that also democratizes it. And here art is democratizing it, and I think that is really the most important aspect of going to different spaces. The plays that you see, they are, as you can see, of various topics and various issues, and they cover things that are happening then. So there are plays which are about immediate happenings, but there are also plays about, abiding issues. And that, I think, is an important point to note when we look at the body of our work that we've done from, in 2020 and 2021 during the pandemic. This crisis, the question that Frank asked, the COVID crisis, this has, many aspects. Want to speak about this? Okay, Komita is very quietly making fingers at me and telling me to speak. This is a particular picture I want to show you. This is the this is an image of our constitution maker, Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar. And the constitution that is democratic India, he's the one who was the architect of it, of course with a team, but he was the architect. And this is a space where there is his statue. So clearly it is a space which honors him. Possibly it is a space where large populations of Dalit people live, but not just Dalits. Everybody, I think, I mean, I revere him a lot, revere him, admire him. And I think the Constitution is a wonderful Constitution. And performing there with him or his statue looking on, I think adds a completely new dimension to the play that we are doing, which suddenly connects us to the past and possibly to the future also. So that's the kind of thing we were talking about. The next picture that you will see is a person called Segal Hashmi, and I just want to say one line about him, that 32 years ago, when we were performing for industrial workers, we were attacked. The performance was attacked, and in that performance, an artist was killed, Safdar, and an audience member, a worker called Ram Bahadur. And that was that killing, that the killings rather, and those murders were because we were performing for workers, and it created a huge impact on the artistic and the struggling and everybody actually across the country and across the globe actually, of how what is the power of art. So when we went on the 4th of Jan, this happened on the 1st of Jan 1989, and when on the 4th of Jan we went back to the same spot, the crowds that you can see are not just the local workers, of course they are there, but there are also hundreds of people who joined us from outside that particular industrial colony. And we went back and completed the play that had to be stopped kind of halfway. And it's that action that led us, that led people to see again once more the power of art. And Safdar actually became an icon of political theater, continues to be like that, and today lots of people remember him and do his plays and read his poetry, even children's poetry, which have nothing to do with theater per se or the issue, but they are to do with current issues. And so the youth has taken him up as their hero. Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah. I think one of the why we wanted to talk about a little bit of our history is to do with that, how pandemic has impacted our work today. The photographs that we are showing is to show that the kind of spaces we go to, and in the times when physical distancing has become so important, and then how do we go to these spaces and perform for the workers. So last year when the pandemic hit in March 2020, a lot of our shows which were lined up got cancelled, and it took us a bit of a time. We saw several artists immediately kind of putting out their art on the internet, but for us it became a question that how do we go to, where do we put our art, because for us our audiences live, as Moloyashree was saying, in these working class areas. This is an audience that who in one household only maybe one or two people can afford a phone, forget about a smartphone. So how do we then take our plays to them? So we took a little bit of a time to come to terms with the situation, to start thinking that what do we do, also can we use technology, how do we put up our plays on the internet, who is going to watch it. There was also this sense that our audience that live in the working class areas will not have access to the internet. Then who are we doing our performances for? So it took us a bit of a time, one month, 1.5 months, and then we started thinking that for a group like ours, Frank, it is also important to keep the group together, because all of us work on voluntary basis. We work in the daytime and we come and do the rehearsal. So if we are not meeting every day, then how do we also keep our keep the group together. So that was also one of the main questions, or a challenge for us. So what we slowly started to do is to started performing online. So we started with performing some poetry recitation online. We went Facebook live, and I want to say that a lot of our people in our group, they did they learned how to do a WhatsApp video call for the first time, because of the pandemic. And so how do we deal with the technology? How do we, what are we going to do with the content? So some of the things that we started doing is to read our older plays. We did some, this is one of the performances that we do. So this year, last year we did it online, and we also had to kind of adapt our performances to the medium. But we also knew that this is not going to be it's not, we do not understand technology. And I'm being very frank. Our group members come from very various cultural and social backgrounds, various age groups. So how do we put something together? So what we started to do, whatever we could do, we started adapting our various plays which we were already doing. We also did some of the older plays. We started reading them. Some of our plays which were already we were doing before the pandemic hit. When the lockdown opened, we started to take those plays like this to the areas, and you can see that our actors are wearing these shields while doing so it also became sort of we were also cracking a joke about it, that it almost looks like that a street theater is happening in 2050. It's totally very dystopic kind of an imagery, but we did not change the content. So in terms of our audiences, in terms of our content, one of the major challenges that all of us felt politically is how to reach out to the audience, to the working class who was still struggling. And then we saw the migrant crisis unfolding in front of us, and there was this agitation that we are not going there, because the trade unions were still working on the ground, they were still providing relief to them. But we as cultural artists, as cultural workers in Jannatya Manch, we were not able to go to the field. So I think our political and personal crisis vis-a-vis theatre was also, at least for me, it's also interlinked. It's not that, obviously, people, there was a health crisis and it opened up several, people had problems in their personal households. But for us, not being able to do theater, not being able to go in these areas was not only an artistic challenge, but also also a political challenge in that way. And we tried various things. We also created a performance like this, which was only for Zoom. But again, the question remained, that who are we reaching to? Who is our audience? And that became absolutely crucial for us.
I'd like to begin. Thank you, Komita. I'd like to begin with something that Komita mentioned. The COVID crisis, it has, of course, many aspects, and I'm sure that will be talked about, and it affects us at many levels, not, very many levels. And I think, as thinking, concerned citizens, what we have seen in our country is the abject failure of our public health system, and the completely, shamefully pro-rich bias of the government. It's really, really something that it just makes me so angry. As a theatre person, let me tell you, I personally, and in the group also, it was very clear that, okay, COVID is there, so we can't go out, right? We'll try some things, that they may work, they may not, but ultimately COVID will go. The Spanish flu went away, so will the COVID. And therefore, that's the only way that theatre can flourish as a life form. I mean, I am personally completely convinced of that. So it was only a matter of, marking time till we are clear of it. And as it happened towards the end of 2020, when workers came to the to the streets with their agitations, and later on, so did the farmers, we went and performed for them, and not just us. Many other artists, poets, they they continue, their creative, what should I say, creative solidarity with whatever agitations are happening. The farmer struggle has been going for over 6-7 months now, and even so, it's a source of inspiration. And really, I mean, I just thought if the farmers can go to the streets and be there, out in the open, in the cold, braving everything, and we can also go and perform. There's nothing. It's fine. Yeah. I mean, it's that which gives me inspiration, because our plays are not just about the darkness of the working people's lives. It's also about the radiance in their lives, of the ordinary people, of their aspirations and joys.
That's fantastic. Do you have a reading for us? We have like 4 or 5 minutes left. Will you?
Yes.
So this is a poem written in Hindi, and it was also put to tune to one of our, to our online show that Komita showed. It's a poem that in Hindi is called Dekh Lenge by a poet called Munesh Tyagi, and in English it's called Defiance. This is in memory of all the people who passed away during COVID or were incarcerated for their beliefs. It's also a tribute to the ongoing fight of farmers, workers, and students. I'll read it now. Dekh Lenge. आधियों ने तय किया है कोई दीपक नहीं जलेगा, दीपकों ने तय पाया है आधियों को देख लेंगे, जुल्मतों ने शोर मचाया रोशनियों को रोक लेंगे, रोशनियों ने तय किया है जुल्मतों को देख लेंगे, हाकिम तो अब दास बने हैं पूंजी और बेईमानी की, लोग भी अब कह रहे हैं हाकिमों को देख लेंगे, दुश्मन फिर से डरा है आशिकों की जात को, आशिक भी तो कह रहे हैं दुश्मनों को देख लेंगे, जालिम फिर से दिखा रहे हैं, जालिम फिर से दिखा रहे हैं फांसियों की रस्सियां, लोग अब भी कह रहे हैं फांसियों को देख रहेंगे.
So this was also a poem that we used in one of our performances that I showed, that we prepared only for the medium of Zoom. And I think to what we are talking today and what our work has been is primarily dedicated to the working class people who reached their home in the COVID crisis, but some who died during COVID crisis. So that's what our work is for, and that's whom we would like to dedicate.
I just say one line after this, that JANAM is like a fish, like fish which lives and survives in waters. We survive in the waters of the struggles of the fighting people, without which we can't survive.
Incredible. And the poem starts, the storms have decided no lamps would be lit. The lamps then resolve to defy the storms. That is quite beautiful. And thank you so much. How is it in your group? Have you lost people to COVID in your theater community?
To theater community, yes. Across
in your
the
group,
country.
In your group also?
No,
and
not
family?
in our group. No, in JANAM, nobody. People fell ill.
People got COVID, and
they recovered.
And everybody has to be tested because we did a rehearsal during those times also. But fortunately, nobody in our immediate theater group, was affected. But there have been friends in the theater community who was
amazing.
Second wave of COVID was quite devastating. Yeah.
All my respect for your work. Is so beautiful. This is so important and so significant and urgent. And what you do, and we're gonna now switch over and move from India to Africa, and perhaps you guys one day could collaborate. Who knows, And we have with us Hope Azeda, who is one of the great artists, and we are listening now to the transitional music, which Shavi and her team put together to help us to ease into the next segments. So Hope, welcome. Where are you now? What time is it?
It is 4:20 p.m. and I'm in Kigali, Rwanda. This is our living room, and this is Miranda Teta, my daughter.
Why Miranda? Welcome.
She'll be reading with me a few
Good.
excerpts. And,
so tell us a bit, before we start, and like our Indian friends, like Komita and Moloyashree said, so tell us a little bit who you are and what you do.
I'm Hope Azeda. I'm an artist, I'm a human being, and I'm also a festival curator. I'm also a writer, and I do a lot of theater productions in Kigali. I run a theater company called Mashirika Performing Arts and Media Company, and it's been on the run, on the move for the last 21 years. And like our friends in India, we've been using art as a tool for social transformation. We've been taking art to communities as well. We've been doing it as our way of intervention and bridging gaps for development. And wherever there is a gap in communities, we've been using art to bridge those gaps, or to start certain kind of conversations that communities are not having about a certain knowledge that they don't have. I'm also a curator for Ubuntu Arts Festival. Ubuntu means being human. And it started off in 2015. And for the last 2 years, it's been running online, part of HowlRound's program as well. And so that's who I am.
That's amazing. And you are one of the few theater organizations in the world that also did almost daily programming in a time of the crisis, right? You had theater artists present their work during almost a year. So tell us a little bit about it. It was extraordinary what you did, I think.
What we've been doing basically is also trying to not to die twice, not to we used, all the lockdowns as a way to begin online collaborations. So we've been putting so much energy on online collaborations, and I feel it's up to be reading for you basically collaborations between Germany, Bosnia, and Rwanda. And for the festival, for the 7th edition of the festival this year, we focused again on collaborations. We're just forcing artists to work together across the globe, regardless, because that was our main pillar of our festivals, was just to, invite artists to Rwanda and, take 2 weeks working together, because we believe in the power of collaborations, in the power of connecting, in the power of knowing that my story could be your story could be my story, my pain could be your pain could be my pain. And since we're a shared humanity, how do we use art to bring, to tailor humanity in whatever we do? Because it's important to invite empathy in our spaces, but to understand our environment and to understand who we are and why and what kind of art do we need to do that has meaning to our own lives. So we've been focusing on a lot of online collaborations, and it's also, we've been focusing on different themes. Our theme last year was focusing on breathe, to just stop, breathe, and live. And this year we're focusing on rebirth. And so everything we've been working along our collaborations have been around rebirth. How do we, from whatever has happened, from the crumbles of the world around us, from the broken pieces that we are, how do we get back on our feet? Because we have that power, and that's what we've been using art, for also healing, as a healing element. It has a healing element as well.
Yeah, I remember you had that theme breathe even in the time of Trevor Martin and the George Floyd killing, that became so significant. And you did hundreds of programs, right? I mean, this is just a stunning number of what you did last year.
Thank you.
Yeah. And are you a free group? You are supported by the government, by your city, or by donations? How does it work?
We are a company. We do a lot of commissioned work. Our theater company does a lot of commissioned work, but we also do works that we feel like no one is commissioning us to do them, but we feel like it's that story that finds a place in my heart and no one is commissioning me to do it, but I need to do it. So I look for my own ways of doing it. I become my first sponsor, and then I just do it to just shed light on what's happening, because I believe art is an encounter, and so is life. It's that particular story that I encounter in life that comes and finds a place in my heart. And once it finds a place in my heart, I'm indebted to give it back to the world as a gift, because it came to me as a gift. And that's what really I've learned from COVID, from these very uncertain times, that each day comes as a gift and it comes with a story. And that story comes to, grow in me, and I need to just give it back to where it came from. So there are stories that we're never commissioned to do, but we do them ourselves. So we look for sponsors, corporates, we do whatever. Sometimes like for the other programs, it's non-government organizations that commission us, like UNICEF, if it's things to do with around, child violence, like domestic against, children. Yeah, some programs we get sponsored sometimes, but certain things we just sponsor ourselves, because I feel like it's a burning idea in my heart and I just need to bring it out. I need to give birth to it because it's grown. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. I remember from our talk, Hope will go to villages, and also for our Indian colleagues. So you know what they do. They go to villages. They often have a scene, let's say domestic violence. They interview people. They talk to families. She also said, we look at the place. We look at the marketplace perhaps, or where there are stairs, where it's just higher, which is lower. Then they go back. They write something. They come back. They talk to people. They go back. And then they come and perform outside or in the spaces. And often, as she said, we have been commissioned because there are problems in communities. It is truly extraordinary, so radical, we would say, so avant-garde, or you might say very traditional, wherever it fits in. But it is just inspiring and really hope for bringing together the community from Rwanda, but all of Africa, but also internationally to your programs, your online programs. What you did there was sensational. So tell us a bit about the reading.
Yeah, the reading, we are going to share with you a few excerpts from our online collaborations. But I wanted to start, first of all, with a tribute to my mother, because in 2020, I remember we were supposed to go and put flowers on her grave, but we could not. So I wrote a letter to her. And letter writing has become a technique in my writing of productions and doing all these things. So it's important that I start off with this tribute, and then we can go to another reading that I'll introduce.
Mm-hmm. So this is a letter to your mother, because you could not go to her grave. You wrote her a letter.
So I wrote a letter to her. Can I share a photograph?
Yes, please. Yeah, looking for it, or maybe Hope, you read it and Miranda can try to.
Yeah, I'll read it and Miranda can try to sort this out.
Yes.
Okay, so on this day, the 15th of June, 2018, you left the world. In this same world, today, 2020, is being choked by two pandemics, the coronavirus and another virus caused by prejudice. For someone like you who love to hug people, this is no place for you. Humans don't touch anymore. And in fact, if we met, I doubt you could recognize me because half of my face is covered in a mask. The world went on a lockdown and left Earth for animals and nature to party. As I write this note, the skies are filled with angry, fiery smoke. The streets are filled with adults and children holding signs, I can't breathe. A volcano erupted, causing a revolution. They say it was sparked by the knee of a bad apple. How is that even possible? Our world is drenched in oceans of crimes against humanity. Tomorrow is so blurry and uncertain, but I'm going by your words. Worry not about tomorrow. Do good and value every moment. It's getting harder each day to do what you loved seeing us do. Play like a child. I'm trying to live every minute that when tomorrow does come, I may roll with the wheel of time and breathe the story of hope. We miss you dearly. Rest well, beautiful. So that was one to my mother.
Mhm.
The next reading is going to be one of our collaborations with German, and it's a story by an immigrant, and her name is Vanessa Bader. So Miranda will read that.
Good. Yeah, if you could get back to your screen.
You must not breathe, you must not walk, you must not eat or drink, you must not think and you must not speak. You must not brush your teeth or wash your hair. You must not love but also not hate. You must not fight, you must not give up. You must not cry but also not laugh. You must not hope but also not be hopeless. You must not be friendly but also not be unfriendly. You must not be helpful, but also not refuse help. You must not make plans, but also not to be without a plan. You must not walk the streets by day, but also not by night. You must not talk to people, but also not ignore them. You must not see it, but also not stand. In a city under siege, nothing belongs to you. Everything you have, you can lose at any moment. But at the same time, you can lose something that you do not have at any moment. In a city under siege, nothing is more important than good timing. Walk or stop at the right moment, cry or laugh at the right moment, drink or eat at the right moment, preferably when no one is nearby. Otherwise, you will feel unstoppable shame and guilt for not wanting to share your food with others. This I can assure you. In a city under siege, not only the ones who come from the outside, your official tormentors, are the ones who made you the person you have become. It is also not only the people suffering with you that made you the person you have become, it is you. You do not want to walk anymore. You do not want to breathe and think. You do not want to make plans anymore and help others. You do not want to be friendly anymore, and you do not want to love anymore and share your thoughts and your food with others. You think, what for? The next moment, everything will be over anyways. But the most important thing you have to know to survive in a city under siege is that you might have to wait a long time for the end, and you should live every moment, even if it is the last one. As a human, and share the last step, the last breath, the last drop of water, and the last whiff of love with others. Because just to survive is not enough. Death is also something you have to accomplish.
Thank you, Miranda. And our next short poem is also my collaboration with another actor from Bosnia. It's called Clouding Memories. You can help me go to the photos. You had a life, and somebody took a scissor and made a stop. Material home was lost. I was always on the move. Everything was really disappearing. Nothing really exists. You have absolutely had no idea how long it will last. You had this hope. This is gonna end tomorrow, but it continues and continues and continues. Amidst the time-worn lonely echoes, I hear songs unheard of ashes you left me, clouding memories, voices from within burst like fiery powder. In the midst of storms, the wind lifts the dust around me, from dust to soul and from somebody to dust, where love and peace still prevail. Out of this cracked earth, I walk on this soil called home, from the buried sand, shattered pieces of the past, slip softly out of breath. Below the blanket of dust, I reckon each bit of self past with the awareness of the lost, where dust follows soul, from dust to soul, and from somebody to dust, where love and peace still prevail. It is still my home, but for the time being, it seems to be the best place to live. Everyone has a story that connects with someone else. Our next piece is a tribute. You can go to the photos. Our next piece is a tribute that my daughter Miranda wrote to our fellow Indian artists that lost their lives in 2020.
Last year, COVID-19 took and it took and it took. From artists who inspired to those from whom we had learned from artists who made us wonder to those whose works stretched our minds to the unimaginable. We thank you. We thank you for your music, your films, your acting, your arts that left room for us to laugh, cry, and connect with each other. Although we say goodbye to the people behind the breathtaking works, we continue to feel inspired and we continue to share what these amazing artists have taught us. We continue to enjoy the legacies you have left, and we continue to embrace the amazing arts you left for us as proof of your true passion. We thank you.
We thank you. And our last reading is a short letter I wrote to the next generation. And that's Miranda. And yeah, dear next generation, during these unprecedented times, I am not sure that what words to pass on to you. Like many others, I'm struggling to see where the path of life will lead me. Although what makes life beautiful and exciting is the uncertainty, it is hard to hold on to hope when humanity is under home. Earth's futures are blurry, but you're given one life with a body, mind, and soul. Don't worry too much about what is to come. Do spend time advocating for humanity and protecting our nest. Spend more time caring about yourself, because you can only start truly caring and loving someone or something else when you have learned to love yourself. Life gets hard as you grow older, but you will grow stronger. Thank you. And that's our end for our tribute, for our reading.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So you were spanning your mother, you yourself, Hope, and your daughter, and it's about survival and life. Abhishek, what comes to your mind when you listen to all of it?
Thank you very much, Hope. We are very, very grateful for such a thoughtful presentation. And thank you, Miranda, for that beautiful piece that you've written for artists from India. The feeling is mutual. I can tell you that completely. So it's really wonderful to hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that was really to hear from Moloyashree, if I say right, and Komita, and from Hope and Miranda, also, and to hear from here, being here in New York, it's truly a feeling of there is a connection, as I think Hope said, there are stories that connect us, and your pain could be our pain, and your story could be our story, and we just happened by chance to be in places where we are, and we all have to prepare for a better future. And so have you, to our Indian colleagues, have you been to Africa? Did you ever perform your street theater in Africa?
Yes, we have. We've been to actually only one place, no?
We have been to Cape Town.
Cape Town.
Cape Town.
Yeah.
No, actually, no. We then went around in Beresford. We performed.
Yeah, Beresford,
Sorry, and there were 3-4 other places.
Yeah. But basically, it was in South Africa, and we were there for about a month in 2014. Yes.
And we are waiting for you with open arms of love in Rwanda.
Yes. We shall come. In fact, the play that we were doing was a play on violence against women, and we realized it was particularly suitable. And though we performed it in the language that we do in Hindustani, but we had kind of those like Brechtian placards, which summed up the scene and that was not just in English, but in the other languages as well that was spoken in that area. And somebody from the audience, we would ask them to pick up the correct placard at the right time. So it actually was very, very accessible to the people, and even young adolescents saw it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Really, really thank you, Moloyashree and Komita, and to Hope and Miranda. And so this is inspiring. I think this was a great start in the first hour, but we are not done yet. We have with us the great Carol Martin, who was a repeated guest, one of the very few on the Segal Talk, and her contribution to theater, contemporary theater, the theater also of the real, has been tremendous and enormous. So Carol, tell us a little bit maybe about you, for everybody who doesn't know who you are and where you are.
Hello, everyone. I'm in New York City. I'm in my NYU office, which is my preferred broadcast place, I guess.
We always think if you're at NYU, you have like golden doors, big windows overlooking
some people
Washington
do.
Square.
Yeah.
Yes,
it's actually a wood door. It is golden color, but anyway. Yeah, so I write about theater. Occasionally, I used to be a dancer, and I did choreography in the United States and in Belgium and Italy. And but I'd like to, this whole thing, which is a wonderful idea, Frank, and everyone else who was involved in conceptualizing it, really got me to thinking about my time in India and my Indian connections. So it's been a bit of a kind of memory thing for me. And, I just want to say, when I first traveled to India on a Fulbright, the Padatik Dance Center in Calcutta, now Kolkata, had a festival of traditional Indian theater and dance. So this was an amazing experience because I got to see so many forms in one place over a period of about 8 days. Sarekala, Purulia, and Mayurbhanj Chow, Yakshagana, Kudiyatam, Kathakali, Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Sanjukta Panigrahi, the formidable Odissi performer, performed there, as did Birju Maharaj, the Kathak master. A lot of these people are no longer with us. I stayed with Shyamanan and Chetna Jalan, and after the festival was over, I actually stayed with Naveen Kishore's mother, which was a kind of extraordinary experience, although not at all exactly about performance. And at that time, I had no inkling that Naveen Kishore would be my publisher. Of course, most Indian artists and scholars know about Segal Books, and he is the publisher of a series of mine called In Performance. And it's an incredible thing that he created in Kolkata. I do want to mention an Indian artist who just passed away. I don't think it was of COVID, but Sureka Sikri, who I met in Delhi when I was there. And at her she was extraordinary, an extraordinary actress. And at her passing, Amal Alana wrote in, I forgot which newspaper, that she was first attracted to Sureka's withdrawn quality. And I think that that's exactly right. Her acting was infused with this kind of thoughtful interiority that made me and others want more, because it seemed to be so rich. So when I was in Delhi, Sureka gave me this beautiful long silver necklace with a trinket on it that looked like an egg, which I wore for many years until one day, I think it disappeared in the subway, to tell you the truth. So in fact, I was in India to study Sarekala Chow with Guru Kedarnath Sahu, who has since passed away, to study it in Sarekala. And when I was there, and I told people where I was going, what I was doing, many of my Indian friends and colleagues said, "Oh, Carol, even we don't go there." So Sarekala is in Bihar, in a very poor rural area. And this was a tiny village, and it was absolutely an extraordinary experience. So all this stuff is amazing to me, you know, what we remember, what we don't remember, all this stuff is very vivid to me. And I don't have photographs of it. I have a few, just a handful. Other things, you know, this is a kind of homage to Indian artists that I've been in contact with. In 2019, I saw Amal Alana's Nati Binodini about Binodini Dasa, performed in Washington, and this is perhaps Amal's most famous production. More recently, the Asia Society here in New York did an incredible exhibition by members of the Progressive Artists Group. And these painters really formed this group in the aftermath of India's Declaration of Independence in 1947. And their mission, I think, is something for our time. So the exhibition examined the ways in which artists from different social, cultural, and religious backgrounds found common cause at a time of massive political and social upheaval. And these artists in the exhibition worked from about 1940 to the 1990s. And I actually was walked through I saw the exhibition, and then Amal Alana walked me through it, highlighting the incredible painterly inventions and all the signs of a hoped for emergent cosmopolitanism, which I think is really still a lesson for our time. So more recently, I wrote about the work of director Zuleika Alana, formerly Zuleika Chowdhury, now again Zuleika Alana. And this, I think, is relevant to the discussion of COVID, but in a sideways kind of way. So Zuleika, just call her Zuleika, did a piece called Landscape as Evidence, Artists as Witness. And for this piece, she did fictional court proceedings in a courtroom setting. She was asking about the judicial usefulness of artistic knowledge and theater techniques. She wrote to India's parliament requesting that it consider admitting the testimony of artists in the courts, much the same as the testimony of economists, historians, doctors, industrialists, politicians, and lawyers. Her subject was testimony about the destruction of the environment. And I think coronavirus is, you know, a cousin to the destruction of the environment. So, you know, the central question of the work is, why shouldn't artistic knowledge be admitted as testimony in a court of law? It's highly specialized knowledge. And I think we've heard, you know, different ways of using artistic knowledge from Abhishek earlier this morning and from everyone in the room today, that it can be used in multiple ways. So there's, and this is my little reading at the center of this. In this piece, Zuleika quotes Mihir Sampson and a petition she wrote. And it reads, this is how it reads. When an ecosystem endures the loss or extinction of an indigenous species or plant, it is not just the tiger or the native wheat variety which has been annihilated. What's been destroyed is the tiger's contribution to the ecosystem in maintaining a balance with other species. The native crop's ability to nourish the human language and its relationship to the tiger and the complex food culture surrounding the native wheat, involving song, dance, spirituality, and countless other facets of the ecosystem's beauty. And I think we've experienced that kind of loss, you know, with the coronavirus, especially in India, but also all over the world.
Well,
that's what I've been thinking in preparation for this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a scholar, been mindful of knowing about theater all over the world as much as I can. And India has been in my knowledge for a long time, although not especially the most contemporary performance, and also especially Japan. Yeah.
No, that is quite deep, and true. In a way, I didn't completely make the connection, but the Segal books which you put out, of course, they are produced and in India, right? And they are put out. They are such deep connections. So we really have and should care what is happening there. So, Carol, how is it for you now? Now this semester break now, and what's going to happen at NYU for the coming? I think we will open at the City University. The doors will open in August. Still, it's really hard to get in right now. Marvin, who was with us, he have to fill out a form in the building. And if you get one answer wrong, you're not allowed back for 10 days. So they wouldn't let Marvin in because he tipped one wrong answer. And the Segal Center, our space, will not be open. It will be used for classrooms. So I cannot present any programs. So for 2 years, actually, was on a hold. But how is it at NYU? What will happen?
So right now, I think many administrators are still working from home. In the spring, most classes were on Zoom, and we have to use passes, which we get on our phones by filling out a daily form to get into the building, and I show it to the guard. And the plan right now for the fall is that all classes will be live in person, still required to wear masks in the building, like in public spaces in the building, not in your personal offices. So that's the plan. I mean, last year I taught many freshmen who were having their first year of college alone at home in their childhood bedroom. And it was not what they expected to be doing. And that was disappointing for some, traumatic for some. So it'll be, some of those students have already registered for my course in the fall, so I'll see them live.
And is vaccinations mandatory? Do they have to be vaccinated to enter the building?
Everybody has to be vaccinated. Yes, mandatory, yeah.
So, Carol, what came to your mind when you heard the contributions from India, from the street theater and Hope in Rwanda? What comes to your mind when you see that?
So, I did meet Badal Sarkar, and I did a workshop with his company many years ago. So I was delighted to hear about street theater continuing. I don't think I saw a rehearsal of Badal Sarkar's work, but I don't think I've seen street theater in India. As a matter of fact, I know I haven't. But, one of the things that occurred to me that was provoked by something Abhishek said earlier this morning was this sense of, the question of the 8-day festival so many years ago in India was, how can we use our traditional forms to make a contemporary theater? That's not the question today. But in thinking about that, and something that Abhishek said, the whole idea of time in Indian performance, of duration, of at least in traditional performance, the expansion of a moment well beyond a moment. So I think of Lakshmi Knight, who's the daughter of Balasaraswati, performing a piece about Radha and Krishna, and one solo performer performing Radha, who Krishna's he's the quintessential bad boy, always off with other women, and Radha sees him coming home in the early morning hours and sees him first with relief, and then with anger, and then with jealousy, and then with love, with myriad emotions. And all this is an absolute expansion of one moment in time. So I'm thinking about, wondering about actually what is going on in Indian performance today in terms of these, the presence of these many different forms simultaneously, and the move into the street, the move into social activism that Abhishek described so well, also on his Facebook page. Yeah.
Yeah, that is quite quite stunning. Abhishek, how do you respond?
Thank you, Carol, for being here too. Carol and I have been strangely colleagues in a department where we have never been at the same time. When I've
We've
been
never
there,
met.
but we are at the same department. So it's wonderful to actually meet you here. And yes, I'm so amazed at the experiences that you have narrated about learning Saraikela Chow and various other forms, and being able to see several forms like that Padatik festival sounds extraordinary. I mean, if it were to happen today, I'm sure many of us here would line up to see that festival. And it must be quite something to also imagine in what shape could something like that happen again, because so many of those artists were in those forms were literally starved in the last few months in various parts of India, and that's something I found thinking about a lot in this time, that we have seen performances of traditional folk forms and so on and so forth. But this time when we were out, we really got to see the backstage, so to say. Because in these performances, there is no backstage.
Right.
But the pandemic presented a backstage for us, I think. So that has been quite visible. And I think that's what I was reflecting on while you have been speaking so beautifully. And also thank you for your books. My God, you just mentioned, that's my daughter. You can hear my daughter.
It's quite loud. It's hard to hear you.
On her own. So your books are real windows to many parts of the world for many of us, your in-performance series. And I hope at the end of this pandemic, we have more scholarship like that, which talks about what happened right now, what was written around the world. I assume people are still writing and making work. So yeah, thank you for that, Carol.
Carol, what do you think? What will be the impact of this time on theater?
Well, it partly has to do with you, Frank, and the quote that I read from Zuleika's piece, and the whole idea of artists and scholars of artists, especially performance, being an ecosystem, and ways which we connect to that ecosystem, ways that we nourish it and feed it, and that artists of performance are specialists in calling worlds into being. So they're, in a certain sense, they're very, very powerful with the imaginary of what we don't yet know. I think these connections on Zoom and these talks, and I'm so thankful to you, Frank, for doing this since March 1st, 2020, always there, with extraordinary energy and reach space and gameness, if you will. And all the artists who have shared their experiences and the scholars who have talked about the pandemic. I think, both a closer look at one's local performance, theater, dance, music, and a greater international awareness probably are part of our lives going forward, hopefully. In the US, students are a little bit not interested in anything other than American performance. This is, very exasperating. So I think you, Frank, have created intervention in all this, international richness and knowledge.
Thank you, Carol. It really means a lot. Also comes from you. We know you mean and I know what you say. So I really would like to thank you. We have the first hour behind us. That's incredible. We worked so hard for everybody. We really put it together in 3 weeks. It's astonishing that we got this off the feet. And Moloyashree and Komita, Hope, and Miranda, and of course, Carol. This is so wonderful to have you guys with us, and thank you for sharing. Thank you for taking time out of your busy lives, and also to our listeners. Really, thank you for taking the time to listen and join in. And we are going to move on to the next section. So thank you.